right, everyone. Welcome back, everyone, to another ShiftED podcast. Um, I have a great guest today. We're really going to jump into mindset. I have Mitch Weisburgh, who's coming in from around New York area, I believe.
Yep.
Hey, Mitch?
Yep. Just Westchester County, just north of New York.
Amazing. And Mitch has a great website called Mind Shifting with Mitch. I'll put that in the notes of the show, but he has tons of great resources on there and a couple of amazing books, which we'll get to. But Mitch, before we start into what's happening nowadays, let's go back in time a little bit, or a little time machine. And I'm always curious to ask guests what some of those foundational moments were in your career that kind of led you to where you are now.
Yeah. So I've had, I guess, quite a few different careers.
Mm-hmm.
I started off in 1975 at a time sharing company. So time sharing in the sense that they had mainframe computers and small companies would send their work in. And this was kind of a pioneering company at the time because they used phone lines for the people to phone the data in.
Wow.
Whereas at that time, people were sending 80 character punch cards back and forth. Okay. So I did a number of things for those companies. I was computer support. I then graduated to designing systems, and then went to sales, um, and then while I was working, I went to business school.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Columbia Business School, and there was like, something. This company that I'm at now, it's not really going anywhere. Um, or there's no place, there's no real future for me.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time that working full time and going to business school was a lot of work because we worked, we had about 20 hours a week worth of homework.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1981, I bought an Apple II Plus computer. Okay, 64K, like,
Some
um,
serious power we're
right,
talking
right.
about.
Like, now what we have gigahertz
Right.
processors. This is like
Right.
kilohertz processors. Um, but included with the Apple II, after you assembled it and everything, you had the very first spreadsheet that exists. VisiCalc,
Mm.
which had 64 columns. 256 rows. But I found that using VisiCalc to do my finance homework and using WordStar to write my reports, I was doing my work in maybe 25% of the time of everybody else. Not at 20% savings, like one
Right.
quarter of the time. And
Right.
I'm sitting on a train going into New York with my dad, and I'm telling him that. And this guy jumps up from his seat and he says, I just bought an Apple II. It comes with 5 different boxes and 6 different instruction manuals. All I want to do is cash flow. Could you show me how to do that?
Mm.
And then from that, which I did free, and then I trained his friends free, and
Mm.
then it just dawned on me like, well, something, maybe people will pay for this. So I started charging people for it. And I started a business and learned a lot about instructional design in addition to what I already knew about systems. And for 20 years, I ran a company that taught business people how to use computers. But I
Mm.
could see in the year 2000 that the future was changing. The new generations were coming up. They knew how to use computers, and Windows meant that software really didn't change. If you
Mm.
knew Excel in 1999 and you stepped onto a computer today, whether you used Excel or you used Google Sheets, it's basically the same thing.
Right.
So
Right. The
you didn't have this
functionalities and
constant
everything. Yeah.
functionalities, the interface.
Mm.
You didn't have this need for constant retraining that you used to have in the old world. So I was looking around for different things to do, and um, I settled on education because I felt, something, with all this technology, there's so much opportunity to change the way we educate kids.
Mm.
And this was in the U.S. We had the No Child Left Behind,
Right.
which we used to call Nickelby, right? So there's this emphasis on education, and I felt, like, maybe I can make a difference and help publishers understand how to take their book products and remassage them so that they could fit into an online or a classroom, a computerized classroom,
Right.
both from the standpoint of how the teachers would use it and the kids would use it and how to sell it. And so that's the business I did for about 15 years. And then, like 15 years later, I'm sitting around and saying, technology is now in the schools to a large extent. It's still
Mm-hmm.
being resisted in many cases, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And kids aren't any better prepared in 2017, 2018 for being adults than they were in 2000. So
Right.
what can I do? And then at that time, I also got an email from a university asking if I would show their undergraduates education technology. And I'm thinking,
Mm.
education technology has not changed. I mean, they've changed education, but they haven't really affected kids.
Right.
So I
Right.
don't really want to show them education technology, but you know what kids need? Kids need to understand how successful people think,
Mm.
how a
Mm.
successful person looks at a problem and instead of like judging it or whatever, comes up with a potential solution, starts implementing the solution, enrolling others in their vision. And even when things don't work out, they take that as information and they pivot or whatever, but they eventually they eventually win out. So it's
Right.
like, let me see if they'd be interested in me teaching the kids that. And
Mm.
so they came back to me and said, well, could you teach a semester course? And I'm like, I'm not, I don't think I want to teach a semester course, but why don't I teach a 2-day workshop?
Mm.
So, oh,
Yes.
like as many entrepreneurs, you see a problem, you come up with a solution,
Right.
and then somebody says, yes, do it. And then all of a sudden you have to figure out, like, how am I going to do this? I had no idea. I had done instructional design, I had done
Sure.
systems work, and all this kind of stuff. I've been an entrepreneur, but I'd never taught a 2-day workshop for kids on how to think. And so
Mm.
I had 5 months to do it.
Mm.
So um, I read books in a lot of different topics that deal with decision making or deal with success. So, psychology, um, military strategy,
Mm.
sales, instruction, cognitive science, neuroscience, economics, so all
Right.
these different areas. And everybody seemed to have like a piece of what it took to be successful. But I felt, I could pull things from all these different areas and make it in one uniform treatise, and really decided that there were going to be three different
Right.
tracks to this 2-day workshop that I was going to teach. One was going to
Mm.
be how do you harness your brain so that you could be resourceful, even when you felt like you were blocked. Second, how should you look at situations so that you're not dispirited when things don't work out, and you're taking the feedback that comes in as motivational in order to continue to improve. And third, how do you work with other people who very often are resisting change or trying to compete with you
Mm.
or disagree with you, or maybe you don't like them, but somehow or other you've got to work in this environment where you're working with other people anyhow. So
Right.
one was, again, the brain, the situation, and working with people, put it together, teach the class, and at the end of the 2 days, the kids stood up and cheered. And it
Wow.
was like, okay, so this is something, it's 2018. This is something that when people learn these skills, they immediately see, oh my gosh, this is going to
Right.
really improve my life.
Right.
And
Right.
so I transitioned from education technology to really just focusing on this. And my goal is, what if we could get a critical mass of people in the world? Okay. What
Mm.
if we could get enough people who really understood how to be resourceful, how to be resilient, and how to be collaborative so that we could really work towards the problems that we're trying to solve?
Mm.
That could be the force that allows everybody to live, more productive and happier lives. Like
For sure.
you could be down on yourself, and another person who knew all these techniques could take a look at you and say, "Oh, I see that you're in survival mode right now. Why
Mm,
don't you take a second and try one of these things to get back into resourceful mode? And so
right.
we can support each other. So that's my mission. And arbitrarily, I've said critical mass of people. I don't know, 8 billion people on the planet. Let's say we reached 5 million people somehow or other, and
Right.
5 million people knew this.
Mm,
That to me seems like a good number to be a critical mass. But it's an arbitrary number, but that's
totally.
what I'm going for.
Totally. And I love what you're saying, Mitch. It's super it's making me reflect a lot on mindset. And I know that that's kind of the crux of,
Yep.
you know, enough of this showing people how to do stuff on Excel sheets and, like that stuff's there, but it's how you're approaching it from your thought process and how you
Hmm.
process all this stuff. Could you kind of define what mindset is for the listeners? Like, what does that mean, a mindset? And I know that in your book, you look at the survival mind versus the sage mind or
Right.
mindset.
Hmm.
Like, what is mindset?
So everything starts with the way your brain makes sense of things, and that's really that's your mindset. And as you brought out, our brains develop two different ways of assessing situations. One is for survival, okay, and that part of the brain operates really quickly, takes very little
Mm,
information, comes up with something that we have to do in order to survive, and it's very binary. So something is either going to kill us or it's going to help us. And if it makes
right,
us, it's either bad or it's good. There's no nuance there. It's bad or it's good. You do it or you don't do it. You're right. They're wrong.
mm,
It's just a binary choice. And once
right,
that part of the brain locks into something, that's what we do, unless we also have the presence to think, oh my gosh, I'm using that part of the brain right now. This is not a survival situation. I could
mm,
relax a little bit and I could be more creative. So when we come up with a mindset that says, I know I can't do this, that doesn't mean that we can't do it. Well, it does to a
right,
certain extent, but it because we if whether we think we can do something or whether we think we can't do something, that's going to be our truth. But it
mm,
doesn't mean that if we looked at it, we couldn't do it. It just means that we've come up with this story in our mind. Our survival parts of the brain have decided, it would be wrong for you to do this because you might be risking yourself. You might fail. You might feel ill at ease. So I'm going to come up with a story that you can't do it. And then we justify that story. We can't do this.
mm,
You
mm,
can't argue with that part of the brain. Okay.
right,
But you
mm,
can kind of go in through the back door and open it up. So if you, as an example, if you have something that you really want to be able to do and you know that you can't do it, you could say to yourself, perhaps I can. And just saying, perhaps I can, your brain can't help but start coming up with ways that you could possibly do it. Now, maybe you can't do it right now. Maybe you need to study something. Maybe you need to get some help. Maybe you need to ask somebody. Maybe you need to practice some more. But it's going to start coming up with things that you could conceivably do.
mm,
And that's mindset.
mm.
I can go on because
Mm,
what I'm thinking is, as I'm going, this is that it's a lot less effective for somebody else to tell you perhaps you can, and it's absolutely ineffective for somebody to tell you you can. So
mm,
if I say, something, I can't save up enough for retirement, and you say, Mitch, that's crazy, you can, that's just going to cause me to argue. I'm going to
mm,
say, no, no, no. I just said I can't do it. I've looked at it.
right.
I can't do it. What are you telling me I can't for? If you could say to me, Mitch, I realize that you're looking at this and you believe that you can't come up with a way to retire or to accumulate enough money to be able to retire.
Right.
What if you just quietly said to yourself, perhaps I can? Why don't you think about retiring? And when your brain says to you that you can't, what if you said, perhaps I can? And just do that for a minute and then tell me what happens. Okay. And so you
Right.
can, that's allowing somebody to change their own mindset and opening up their brain.
Hmm, I love that. Yeah, because we often talk to teachers about the fixed mindset and then kind of the
Yep.
more open mindset, where fixed is no, no, this is what I can do, and I know I can do this. I can't do any of that other stuff. Whereas open is like, sure, I mean, I'll try,
Right.
you know?
I'll try. And hopefully with open mindset, when you try and it doesn't work, you're using that as feedback. You're saying, "Oh,
Mm,
I did this. I expected these results. I got slightly different or the opposite results from I expected. How can I take that to still be able to move forward?"
right, right.
That,
And I think in education, I mean, that's the crux a little bit of we're hoping to instill a little of that in the students that sit in front of us every day so that when they are beyond school, that they have those tools that they've developed, or
yep.
that there are no challenges that I can't take on. I'll figure it out. I'll find out help. I'll persevere, etc. Like all of these really important um, aspects of the human development, really.
Hmm.
How do you get practicing those in a practical way? Now, I know on your site you have some courses, and
Right.
they are called personal development courses. Do those courses help open those doors up a little bit that to help you with resilience and
No, the
persistence
courses
and
are actually horrible. Nobody likes them.
mm.
People complain about them all the time, but I offer them. No, yeah, I hope I I get really interesting feedback from the teachers,
Yeah.
the educators who end up taking the courses, because that my focus in these courses is to help educators, live better lives, teach better, and teach kids those skills. One of the examples was in the course that we just finished, which is on the resourcefulness part of it. That a teacher was saying, and this is a kindergarten teacher, so she's teaching 5-year-olds, and she says the kids were coming in and they were wild, and I said, sounds like you guys are wild. And she says one of the kids says, you know what? We should all sit down and do some box breathing now and calm ourselves down. Okay. And she says,
Nice.
she had introduced them to the box breathing as part of
Mm.
after the first session of the course. And, um, and they got it. So you can
That's
teach
great.
these techniques to
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
The techniques, the way I look at it is you first are learning the techniques for your own life. And second, you're learning how to co-regulate with the kids.
Mm.
And the kids are learning how to be co-regulated quicker, and then they gradually also learn how to take on and do these things for themselves.
Interesting. And if I'm taking the course, Mitch, like what's the interactivity? Like what does the course feel like that you've created that kind of gets teachers thinking about themselves a little bit more?
Well, there's 3 different courses,
Mm-hmm.
and the course on resourcefulness and the course on resilience, which is the situations. Those courses are both 6 2-hour Zoom sessions. Okay, now
Mm-hmm.
in the Zoom session, say in the first session, we go over some concepts. Then you break into small groups and you try them out in the small groups. Then you come back. Then we talk about what happened in the small groups. And then at the end, you're given a couple of the things that we covered in that session, and you're supposed to try them with other people. Now, you could try them with a class, you could try them with fellow teachers, you could try them with your family, you could try them with friends. It doesn't matter who you try them with,
Right.
and a reflection that you type in. Um, on what happened, what worked, what didn't work. Then in the next class, one of the first things that we do is that if a number of those people share what happened, so we get really good stories about what worked. Like one of the most powerful stories, and this has very little to do with school, um, but a teacher was saying that she has a friend who was in an abusive relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and she and another friend were going to help this woman move with her kids into another place on a Saturday. And they'd given the woman a list of the different things to do. And they were going to come on a Saturday, pack up the cars, go, and then deposit her in this new place. And they get to the woman's house on a Saturday, and the woman hadn't done not
Hmm.
one of the things on the list.
Oh,
And so their immediate reaction is anger, right?
right,
And
right.
that's normal. Like we told you to do these things. It
Hmm.
really wasn't that hard. And then they said, you know something, that is our survival. That's our limbic reactions right now. Why don't we first calm ourselves down? And so the two of them did some, meditation or something to slow down their breathing to,
Hmm.
and then reached in and says, well, what is really important to us now?
Hmm.
And that came from the course also. And they said, what came back is what was really important is we have this good friend. And what's really important is to help her get started with another life. And as a matter of fact, she was probably just trying to survive during this week, much less do these things.
Right.
So big deal. We're going to spend this entire day working with her, but that's going to set her up and her kids for a good life. And they did that. And at the end of the day, all three of them were satisfied. That the two who had helped just felt that they had made a huge difference in somebody's life. And
Hmm.
they said, we couldn't have done that without understanding that our initial reaction was just our survival system
Right,
trying to protect us, and we had to first quiet it down, then figure out what we really wanted to do, and then we could do it.
right, right. Interesting. And you said too that you want, of course, you want 5 million people to follow them, right?
Yep, yep.
And what 5 million people follow this course, okay, or the courses?
Or
What's
courses, books, or learn from other people. They don't have to learn from me. Okay.
right, right,
I'm more than happy if somebody, takes the class and they say, something I would like to teach the rest of my teachers in my school.
right?
I'm more than happy to just let them use anything that they want to in order to teach the other teachers in their school.
Amazing. And what's that outcome though? Like, what do you want those 5 million teachers to be? How do you want their mindsets to shift from the starting of to the ending of the courses? Like, what do you hope
Right.
is the result of that? 5 million people changing their mindset. Like, what
Mhm.
what do you envision?
Well, so it's complex, okay? It's not just one thing, okay?
Right.
If you look at the really big outcome for the individuals, it's like, wow, you know something? I'm doing the things that are most important to me, and
Hmm.
I feel great about it.
Hmm.
Okay? So
Hmm.
that would be number one. Number
Right.
two is, and I'm supporting others living their best lives too.
Hmm.
Okay. And
I like
then the
that.
third thing is that if we get enough of those people, then these fights that we have about should we be conserving or should we be pushing business? Should we be stopping guns or should we be finding other ways to reduce violence? Should we be increasing taxes or should we be spending more on social services? Those aren't like simple questions, and we're treating them as if like, yes, there's one answer. It's to be able to understand that those are complex issues and to be able to change with those to um, discuss with people who disagree with us in order to come up with solutions that are more nuanced than we could have come up with on our own.
Hmm.
And we all think that conflict is bad. Destructive conflict is bad. But to be able to look at conflict as a way to come up with something better than we could have come up with on our own, well,
Right.
that's a great gift. And so
Yeah.
that's what I wish for everybody.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. I mean, and I love your goal. It's not like, no, I hope that, my little community is, no,
Right.
1 million people. Yes. And Mitch, I want to help you with that because
Thank
I
you.
mean, I really value your insights, and this work that you've done is a, lifetime of work really that you've assembled to support people's shift in mindsets. And I've always loved the idea that we're never in a box. We can always open that box up and look
Yep.
beyond it. But sometimes we need the tools. We're just not sure how to go about doing that.
Hmm.
Um, so I want the listeners out there to know that we're in talks with Mitch about getting these courses available to our
Free,
community here in
free,
Quebec for
free.
free. And if you know that you want to shift your mindset a bit, well, uh, take note, and I'll get you this information soon. Hopefully sooner than later, Mitch, we can do this, because I want to take this course now too, or courses, I should say.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And, so I felt, doing the courses, I'll reach a certain number of people, and those people can reach other people.
Right.
Writing them as books. I have this, my bias has been that you can't really learn this from a book.
Right.
I still have that bias that you can't just read the book and learn this. I have had people who've read the first book, and starting people who've read the second book who've come, so I read your book 3 times and I'm able to practice it. But how many people read a book 3 times and practice it? Okay. But, like, so the book allows me theoretically to reach more people. We're
Right.
also writing study guides for the book, so people in an organization could read the book, and they've got lesson by lesson reflection exercises and discussions, so that you can have this combination of social learning and reflection along with the book. Maybe that will contribute to the book.
Mm.
And then I'm also trying to, well, I'm the next experiment is developing this as a course where AI mentors will mentor people through the technique. So you don't
Mm.
necessarily need a person.
Right.
You can, I don't know, there's this whole debate about, general artificial intelligence, but this is really much more targeted. It's like,
Right.
okay, we're going to use the perhaps I can technique. And
Mm.
so in the perhaps I can technique, what's something that you really feel that you should be doing and you know that you can't? And then it just asks you questions about that, so that you come up with so that you're able to then apply it to yourself, and you're able
Right.
to apply it to other people. So that's
Interesting.
that's another thing that I'm trying. But I don't know how I'm going to reach 5 million people, but somehow or other that, with my goal and with other people taking this beyond where I can take it,
Right.
that's my goal.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I hope that we can help with that, Mitch. It's been a real pleasure talking with you. I hope
Thank you,
that
Chris.
we can continue this conversation, and that we can have you come into our community and share some of your insights.
I would love that. I would love that. Je ne parle
Amazing.
pas français, but I speak English, and I speak a very tiny bit of French.
Well, we service the Anglo community, so you're in a safe spot.
Good.
Right on. Well, Mitch, thanks so much. I wish you a great day, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, good, Chris. Thank you. Thank you so much.